ride.
Want a lift?
Hey! Okay, dude, let's see what that jalopy can do!
What's a jalopy?
First off the line.
Yeah, I'm sure they're feeling pretty silly right now.
Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to Megas Month. So this is going to be the final episode of Megas Month, and also the final review of Megas XLR. And this is in fact the final episode of the series. This is in fact Rearview Mirror Part 2. Rearview Mirror. But yeah, Rearview Mirror Part 2 just kind of showcases the fight proper against Evil Coop. And it is probably one of the more harrowing fights in the series, as Coop has to now fight an uphill battle against his evil self, and it is probably one of the tougher fights that Coop has had to fight. But yeah, this episode is interesting, and also we're going to be getting into some other things about what happened to Megas XLR, why it kind of went away. And more importantly, I'm going to be discussing how you guys can actually help potentially bring it back for more. So, because obviously the fan base has been very rabid about the fact that this show got canceled prematurely, and they very much want a third season or a reboot, wherever the hell. And there are plans for another season, but it does need your help to actually come back. And there's a very good reason, and there is a thing that I will discuss that. But in any case, this episode does in fact open up with Coop confronting his evil self, and Evil Coop and regular Coop are very confused as to why the fact that there's two of them, and even Gorath even comments on the fact that there's two of them, which is very strange and also a little annoying, since he points out he doesn't like Coop. And the fact that there's two of them kind of makes him a little bit sick to his stomach. But and of course, Evil Coop immediately asks Evil Kiva to elaborate and try and figure out what exactly is going on. And while Evil Coop tries to actually wrap his head around the fact that he's a bad guy. And of course, Evil Kiva does confirm that this is indeed the same Coop from an alternate dimension. But while Coop is very much confused about why he's fighting himself. And of course, Evil Coop does indeed gloat about the fact that it seems like he's now finally found something that he can use to actually locate another dimension. And of course he does indeed proceed to point out that Coop seems to have seems to be a lot more of him, and referencing the fact that regular Coop is fat, and also points out that he's a little surprised that he can actually fit inside that walking junk pile he calls a robot, and of course Coop points out that he has no problem with Evil Coop calling him fat, but also points out that nobody insults Magus and gets away with it. At which point Evil Coop nearly points out that he abandoned that what he refers to as that toy a long time ago, and does point out that regular Coop isn't going to be able to beat him in his new robot. But it's at this point where alternate Jamie intervenes, pointing out that he's tired of having to fight Evil Coop, and points out that his madness is going to end here. But of course, Evil Coop merely remarks that he does point out that alternate Jamie has stood in his way for a long time, but points out that now that his resistance has crumbled, that there's no chance of him actually fighting back against him. And then also declares that now that he's figured out that Coop is from an alternate dimension, he now knows that there's alternate Earths that he can now go and conquer, and points out that now he can finally go find another alternate version of Jersey City and proceed to do the whole thing over again. And Coop, realizing that means all of his favorite things are going to be destroyed, and quickly realizing that he's going to need to defend his home, then angrily asks what makes Evil Coop think he's going to let him do that. And of course Evil Coop merely responds by firing a rocket fist from his mech, which proceeds to destroy the character and seemingly kills alternate Jamie, Coop, and Gorath. And now satisfied with the fact that everything that's in his way has been defeated, Evil Coop then proceeds to go back to his base and tells Evil Kiva to make preparations immediately for them to invade the alternate Earth that they've discovered, and they immediately leave, unaware that Coop, Gorath, and alternate Jamie are actually completely fine. They got hit by the wreckage a little bit, but they're otherwise okay, and And Coop does pick himself back up and cleans off the other robots that Gorath and alternate Jamie are in, and asks if everybody's all right. And of course, alternate Jamie is immediately very sarcastic, pointing out that his entire forces have been decimated, his base has been destroyed, and all the other things that have just gone wrong since alternate Coop has arrived. And does ultimately sarcastically arc that he's great. At which point, ultimate regular Gorath, I'm getting very confused, but regular Gorath points out that obviously he would be very happy to actually destroy Coop right then and there, but does point out that he's going to need to fight. They are going to need to actually fight back against Evil Coop and stop him from invading. And of course, Coop does point out that obviously that isn't exactly what they're going to do, even though alternate Jamie points out that they have nothing to fight with and they're going to be fighting an uphill battle. But of course, Coop merely points out that they still have Magus and the elements of surprise, and points out that they could easily sneak up on Evil Coop and swiftly defeat him. And that is up until Magus springs a leak and oil starts going everywhere, and Gorath points out that at least they still have the elements of surprise. But of course, it's at this point where Coop tries to rack his brain to figure out where his evil version would go. At which point, alternate Jamie points out that he just kind of has a fortress, which Coop admits is kind of cool, and points out that he would like his own fortress, much to alternate Jamie and Gorath's chagrin. But also points out that now that they know where he's going, that they're going to be able to go in and completely decimate Evil Coop's army. And sure enough, Evil Coop is actually standing in front of his Zaku robots, which with Evil Kiva putting in the coordinates for them to actually go in and take over the New Jersey City, and of course Evil Coop points out that now that he has an alternate version of Jersey City to take over, he's free to just take over the world all over again and destroy it, and of course immediately sends his robots into advance. Only for Coop, alternate Jamie, and Gorath to emerge out of the clouds and destroy the dimensional gate in one fell swoop. And of course this causes Evil Coop to become annoyed at the fact that his good self has come back. And Evil Kiva declares that she's going to go and deal with it. And immediately goes in to try and fight regular Coop. And tells regular Coop what he thinks he's doing there, and thinking he can actually stand against them with his pathetic machine. And Coop asks her if this looks pathetic, and he then proceeds to strike a pretty cool looking pose, only for the fin on the back of Magus to actually fall off. And Evil Kiva does remark that yes, it does, but then she immediately tries to shoot Coop and Magus, but Gorath intervenes and punches her rope mech in the face, which just causes all the other robots to immediately hone in on Gorath, and very quickly, he and Gorath, alternate Jamie, and Coop then proceed to fight in their respective robots to try and fight back against alternate Evil Coop's robots, but of course it quickly becomes apparent they're fighting an uphill battle, and of course Gorath and Jamie both kind of retreat, pointing out that they're not going to be able to stand against each other. But of course Gorath even tells Coop to retreat, pointing out that he doesn't really, that as much as he doesn't like him, he does point out that they need to stay alive in order to get back home. But Coop points out that if there's one thing he doesn't like more than Gorath, it's himself. But quickly becomes confused about who he's talking about, because obviously he's talking about the alternate version of himself that turned evil, but he doesn't fully but of course he gets confused because it's Coop, and he does a bit of back and forth where he tries to explain what he's talking about before deciding to just escape, fuck it, and immediately charges in to actually go in and try and fight against Evil Coop. But what we quickly find out is that the idea about the fact that Evil Coop has abandoned Magus and has actually become a lot more powerful in his new mech. It quickly turns out that he's not lying, because as it turns out, Evil Coop is powerful enough to destroy Magus in one hit. And sure enough, Evil Coop quickly destroys Magus with what I'm going to call Evil Magus, because that's what the internet has called it. But Evil Magus quickly destroys regular Magus in one hit, and Evil Magus goes down, and immediately it goes into a full system failure because it's been stabbed through the chest by Evil Magus's energy sword. And Coop quickly and of course alternate Jamie quickly realizes that Coop is redlining and he needs to eject from Magus immediately. But Coop refuses, pointing out that he's not going to leave Magus. And sure enough, Magus winds up exploding, and limbs and body parts just fall everywhere, and Magus is just completely destroyed. Which, yeah, it's a very sad and harrowing thing. But with his good self now seemingly destroyed and defeated, Evil Coop asks Evil Kiva to give him a status update about what's going on with the dimensional gate, and after examining it, Evil Kiva concludes that the dimensional gate is actually still usable. It's just a little bit smashed up, and points out that she can easily fix it, and it'll take her a couple of hours. And of course, Evil Coop tells Evil Kiva to get right on it, and that they will invade in a couple of hours once it's fixed. But as we find out, Coop actually didn't die. As it turns out, Gorath wound up saving him, pointing out that he didn't really like doing that, but points out that he really had no choice, and actually wound up scooping up the Kuma with Coop in it, which obviously is very beat up and damaged because it was in an explosion, and of course Coop just kind of denies the fact that it's that bad, and points out that he can easily fix it, and only for it to explode, and Gorath and alternate Jamie pointing out that that was such a waste, pointing out that obviously Gorath went from being stuck in the past to being stuck in an alternate dimension where his mortal enemy is now an evil villain and has destroyed everything. And of course Coop picks up the hula girl from his dashboard when it flies to reveal the explosion, and points out that he doesn't really fully understand what happened and how he actually wound up becoming a bad guy. And of course points out that he's not supposed to be the bad guy. He's supposed to be the good guy. He's supposed to be the hero who saves the day. And of course, alternate Jamie then proceeds to fill us in on alternate Coop's backstory and how he became Evil Coop. And what we found out is that Evil Coop did succeed in his mission to defeat the Glorft. As we quickly find out, he did indeed destroy the Glorft, but somewhere along the way, he just kind of became warped and twisted and became a lot more aggressive, and then continued to keep fighting and destroying villain after villain and even a couple of allies. And sure enough, what we find out is actually of the villains pictured, he defeated the S-Force, who wound up trying to stop Evil Coop's reign of terror and wound up not paying the price for it, as well as Magnanimous, T-Bot, and a couple of others. And of course, alternate Jamie points out that through all of this, alternate Coop wound up going on a rampage of destruction, returned evil, and started conquering planets and worlds, and eventually became an evil dictator that took over Jersey City and the beyond. And as for Evil Kiva, she kind of lost her humanity by falling in line with Evil Coop, but of course because she lost faith in the fact that she will eventually one day return to the future, she turned evil as well and lost most of her humanity as she lost sight of her goal. She just kind of helped Coop with whatever he needed, and the two just wound up becoming evil in the process. And sure enough, to emphasize this point, he points out that Evil Coop had destroyed everything, and also pulls out a picture where it's revealed that alternate Jamie and alternate Kiva used to date, which of course alternate Coop just kind of laughs off when he sees the picture, and points out that there's no way that would happen, and also points out that there's no way that he would become evil and abandon Magus like that. Which of course causes alternate Jamie and Gorath to actually realize something. If Evil Coop abandoned Magus, then it's somewhere. And sure enough, they eventually do search around, and with Coop's help, they do eventually find Evil Coop's old garage, where they do indeed find Magus. And of course Coop points out that there it is, so good as new, and realizing that they could actually turn the tide with it. But Gorath points out that it's obviously not going to be enough, and points out that if he had his army, he could very easily defeat Evil Coop, and they could easily turn the tide against him. And of course, this causes Coop to actually get a brilliant idea with Gorath and alternate Jamie just kind of bemoaning in disgust because Coop's ideas are never good. But in any case, it then cuts to Evil Coop's fortress, where he's currently has currently fixed the warp gate and is proceeding to send his armies through it before joining himself. And sure enough, as we find out, Coop and Jamie and Kiva, or regular Jamie and Kiva, are completely oblivious to what exactly is going on. They see a couple of giant robot. They see a couple of Evil Coop's robot army come through, and Jamie doesn't fully understand what exactly it is that's going on. He doesn't fully understand what's going on, and Kiva's too busy trying to turn off the core destroyer to actually care, so she's not really paying attention to what's going on around her. But of course, for the rest of the episode, regular Kiva and regular Jamie are just kind of very, very confused as to what's going on, but they're not really paying attention to anything, and they're kind of just half paying attention to what's going on around them while this is happening, and of course, eventually, all of Evil Coop's army eventually emerge in main Jersey City, while Evil Coop and Evil Kiva eventually follow after them, and after having his entire army appear, Evil Coop then tells all of his robots to destroy everything, only to hear his good self tell him that that's not going to happen. At which point it's revealed that Gorath and Coop had actually arrived back in their dimension with a little bit of help from Coop, and it's revealed that they had actually just been waiting for them, and of course this causes Evil Coop to become enraged to no end, pointing out that he just wants his regular counterpart to die. At which point, Gorath's commander then calls him up, pointing out that he didn't know where he was, and asks him what his orders are. At which point Gorath orders them to all form on Coop and help him fight. And though the Glorf commander doesn't actually question the orders, he does ultimately follow them, and orders all of the Glorf robots to actually flank on Coop on regular Coop, and then proceed to fight back against him, or rather fight back with him. And of course, Evil Coop is very ecstatic about this idea, pointing out that he's very happy to be able to defeat the Glorf all over again. And of course, this causes it's at this point where where both of the respective armies get ready to battle, and Coop delivers his final trash talk of the series, where he calls out Evil Coop for all the evil things he's done, as well as just making Coop lose a whole lot of weight and becoming skinny now. And of course, Evil Coop has indeed lost weight. That was part of it. That was part of his backstory. He's just a lot skinnier now because he actually got himself into shape. But of course, after delivering his trash talk, Coop then proceeds to point out that they're back in his home dimension, and points out that they do things a little bit differently there, and tells him that if he wants to fight, that if he wants to take over his dimension, he's going to have to go through him. At which point, the Glorf Armada, Evil Coop's army, as well as the Glorf Armada led by Coop, then proceed to charge into battle against each other, with the Glorf Armada taking on Evil Coop's white robot army, while Gorath takes on Evil Kiva directly, and Coop obviously fights his evil self. And of course, Evil Coop does indeed try to gloat against his good counterpart, pointing out that obviously he doesn't think good Coop is going to be able to beat him, and even tells Coop that fact, pointing out that obviously Coop knows he can't beat him, but regular Coop merely responds that he doesn't know nothing, and then proceeds to deliver an elbow dive from the top of a nearby building, telling his evil counterpart that he needs to watch a little bit more pay-per-view wrestling, and proceeds to actually deliver an elbow jab and several other wrestling moves, with Evil Coop just kind of trying to respond about the fact that obviously all of that is fake, and has indeed realized that a long time ago. But Meanwhile, Evil Kiva is actually goading on regular Gorath, and does tell Gorath why he's fighting alongside his main enemy, pointing out that he should actually be ecstatic about the fact that the world is actually being taken over. At which point Gorath just kind of points out the fact that if anybody's going to take over his world, it's going to be him. And then proceeds to actually get into a fight with Evil Kiva, and continues to actually fight back against her, and does temporarily to kind of hold her off, and of course, Evil Coop is also being swiftly defeated by Good Coop, who is actually doing a pretty good job of actually maneuvering Evil Coop's old Magus, while Evil Magus is actually having a bit of a hard time keeping up, because and this is something I should mention. regular Coop, obviously, regular Coop has learned his lesson about trying to engage Evil Coop head on without a bit of a plan. And meanwhile, Evil Coop is just having a really hard time actually keeping up with regular Coop, because obviously regular Coop's fighting style is a lot more frantic and hard to predict. And because of how improvisational it is, Evil Coop's more strategic mind isn't able to actually keep on top of it and figure out what's going on. And of course, this winds up being the two of them do wind up fighting each other to a stalemate a little bit. And meanwhile, Kiva actually calls up Coop and asks him what's going on, and of course, Coop points out the fact that they're actually fighting an evil alternate version of himself, but obviously Kiva doesn't fully understand what he's doing, but does point out that he needs to keep the Glorf occupied for a little bit longer, which Coop pointing out that they're actually engaged in a battle currently. Probably not going to be much of a problem, but in case, yeah, at one point, Gorath does indeed wind up getting locked in with by Evil Kiva, who mocks Gorath on his inferior technology, but she winds up getting knocked away by a regular Coop who tells the squid that he owes him one. And sure enough, the two of them then proceed to engage against Evil Kiva, while Coop goes back to fighting Evil Coop. And eventually, it does seem like if at long last, Evil Coop finally has the upper hand against his good counterpart. But quickly, and this is the main difference between them. Otherwise, they're very similar in how they act. But the main difference between Evil Coop and Good Coop is that whereas Good Coop will actually fight back against all odds, despite how stacked against them they might be, Evil Coop actually flees at the first sign of things not really going his way. Case in point, Evil Coop's army has been almost completely decimated, while the Glorf have sustained minimal casualties. There are very few Glorf dead, and of course this causes Evil Coop to quickly realize that he and Evil Kiva need to retreat, and they do proceed to make their way back to the gate, which as it turns out is what Coop and Gorath were counting on. As it turns out, alternate Jamie had actually snuck into the base rather easily because nobody was there. And when Evil Coop and Evil Kiva are actually trying to return, alternate Jamie just destroys the gate, telling them that they won't be able to conquer any more planets where they're going, and tells them that they should have fun being trapped in an alternate dimension between space. And of course, Evil Coop and Evil Kiva quickly realize what's happening to them, and they wind up getting stuck inside an alternate dimension where their threat is now no longer a thing. And of course, this causes Coop to celebrate, since they got his evil self, but then he immediately stops celebrating when all of the Glorfs surround him and immediately try to take him prisoner. And of course the Glorf commander immediately points out that obviously they finally captured their enemy, and does order the Glorf to actually finish their mission and destroy the planet. But Gorath immediately tells them to stand down, and what we find out is that Gorath is interested in actually forming a truce with Coop. As we find out, they quickly flash a smile at each other, and Gorath then proceeds to extend his hand in friendship toward Coop. And Coop goes to take it, only to trip on a pipe and destroy the core destroyer in the process, which also takes out several of Gorath's men. And Gorath quickly realizes that he didn't know what he was thinking, and should have expected something like that to happen. And then proceeds to point out that though they may have sided with him now, he does point out that he will eventually come back and will eventually take the prototype away from him. And with that, he and what's left of his men then proceed to leave. And meanwhile, Coop and Kiva and Jamie have actually watched this whole thing, and do wind up reconvening with Coop, who wonder what the hell is going on and what happened. And Coop obviously explains what happened to him. He explains how about how their dimension was being conquered by an evil version of himself, and he had to fight back against Evil Coop to keep him from taking over Jersey City. And also proceeds to tell them that they actually dated, which of course causes them to immediately think that Coop may have hit his head or something. And Jamie points out that maybe something is going on, but Coop merely points out that it doesn't really matter, and points out that as long as they've dealt with his evil self and kept Jersey City safe, that there's no real problems. And of course Jamie then adds a really snide remark about the fact that Coop destroys the city by himself, no problem. So he does point out that obviously if there is indeed an evil version of himself, it probably wouldn't be much worse than regular Coop. And that's fair. Coop has indeed destroyed quite a bit of things in his time as a hero, but Coop now happy about the fact that his world has been saved, and there wasn't in Jersey City was indeed destroyed a little bit, but it'll probably recover. Coop then wonders what new toys his evil self had actually programmed into his Magus, and now experimenting with Evil Coop's upgraded Magus, we discover that it actually has several new weapons, and that we don't really get to see, but it does wind up blowing up several different locations in Jersey City as Coop is practicing out his new weapons, and that is where the series ends. So yeah, first and foremost, that's a really fun episode to end the season off on, and the series as a whole. Just Coop fighting his evil alternate self. That is what they decided to end on. But now we actually do need to discuss what actually happened to Megas XLR. So obviously, as I mentioned, Megas XLR got canceled and got screwed over by the network. But what I do want to point out is that Megas XLR didn't die a natural death. As evidence in several interviews, and if you want to look for those, you can actually go and find them. But as we find out, the creators of the show have indeed pointed out that it wasn't really a matter of rating so much, even though the Wikipedia will say otherwise. But what actually happened was obviously Megas XLR is geared toward an older audience. Obviously, it is geared toward an older generation of people who of course will relate to all the adult humor that are in this show, and of course are going to understand all of the references that are in this show. And obviously that's the point of Megas XLR. It's supposed to be a deconstruction of mecha anime as a whole. It's supposed to pull in and reference all the other giant robot shows that the creators have seen over the years, and yeah, overall, that's what the series is. It's supposed to pay homage to all of those great all the great mecha series that came before it. But of course, Cartoon Network didn't really get some of the executives at Cartoon Network didn't really get the show, according to Wikipedia. And what we find out is that apparently, around the time Megas XLR was entering its second season, we also got Ben 10 and Teen Titans. And obviously those shows are great. I recommend watching those. I recommend enjoying those. Those are fun as well. Go watch those shows. But yeah, as it turns out, because those shows were coming down the pipeline, and because all three of these shows actually do wind up targeting the same demographic anyway, Cartoon Network decided it didn't really need Megas XLR and started messing with its scheduling to actually get it to underperform so that they had a reason to cancel it. And of course, to add to that, they actually started airing it in the 3:30 graveyard slot, which is a death sentence for most shows. They started airing reruns in the middle of very early morning when nobody's awake. That is why they call it the graveyard slot. It's because nobody's awake at the time, so obviously the shows that are in there will underperform and you will not see them. That is a very big thing. But and of course because they did that, Megas XLR unfortunately got canceled after the second season and never came back. But there is a bit more to than that, and obviously people will know this if they're familiar with the show. But Megas XLR was actually written off as a tax loss fairly recently, about 6-7 years ago. And the problem with that is that means Megas XLR is unable to come back in any official way, because obviously it's been written off as a tax loss, which according to myself means that according to my dad, who I talked about this on, but because that's the kind of thing he knows. But I talked about Megas XLR and how it hadn't actually come back because it was written off as a tax loss, and he does point out that he has, and I'm not 100% on this, but he has stated that eventually you will have to pay the money back. You will eventually have to pay what you owe to the IRS, and it will eventually come back. But the reason I bring this up is because that's what's currently keeping Megas XLR from coming back. And I have mentioned this. Titmouse, who has currently gotten the rights away from Warner Brothers over to their studio, they have been trying to work on a reboot for the longest time and have been trying to bring the show back, but they can't, because obviously being a tax loss, being written off as a loss, means that they can't bring it back commercially in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, the end result of that means that Megas XLR can't come back, at least for now. But But of course, that hasn't stopped fans from demanding more of the show, writing petitions on kind of remastering it in 4K, which and a whole bunch of other fan projects, which is really cool. And the fact that it's still beloved to this day by its many fans does make me happy. It does make me happy for the future of the show when it eventually does come back. But obviously, the petition thing, that's not going to work. I'm going to tell you guys this right now. Writing a petition, that is not going to work at all. And obviously there have been several petitions, but the reason it's not going to work is because it can't come back because Cartoon Network and whoever else owns the show, they need to pay off what they owed in first before they can actually buy the show, get the show back on the airs. And of course there are multiple ways for you to actually watch the show and help it make money. First and foremost, depending on what territory you're in, it is on HBO Max. Go watch it go buy a subscription to HBO Max if it's available in your country, if the show itself is available in your country to watch there, and just go watch it because I think it's currently only available in South America. It may be wrong on that. There may be more places around the globe where Megas XLR is currently on HBO Max, but yeah, it's currently on HBO Max in at least South America. So if you're in South America, watch it there. But on the off chance you're not watching this in South America and want to know where else you can watch it, go check it out on Xbox Video and iTunes, because that's the main way it's going to be able to make money again. Obviously, there's no merch for the show that you can buy to help break even. There's no DVD releases. There's nothing like that. It's kind of stuck in this perpetual limbo where it's unable to actually be re-released in any way, shape, or form commercially. So obviously the only way they could do it was by releasing it on a free-to-upload video service. They uploaded it on iTunes and they uploaded it on Xbox Live Video. And the only way you can so far, the way I recommend you actually doing this and helping support the show so it can come back, and I have linked it in all the episodes for this, so you should be able to find it. Go buy Megas XLR. It'll cost you maybe like $50 about for, I think, like $20 per season, or $50 total. But yeah, go check that out. Go check out Megas XLR. Go watch it for yourself if you haven't already. Go buy it. Go buy it on Xbox Live Video, wherever. And this is something I want to bring up. The episodes are a little out of order, and I noticed that while I was reviewing it. It's like I looked at the video order that's listed online, and I've also looked at the video order that's listed in Xbox Live Video. They're a little bit out of order. There's a couple of episodes that come a little bit earlier, or a little bit later than they're supposed to, and I think specifically Clockwork Magus and Thanksgiving Throwdown are specifically the ones that are out of order. But everything else is up there. Everything else is the whole thing is completely watchable for you there. So yeah, that's the main way I recommend helping bring the show back. Just throw money at the series so that they can actually repay what they owe and break even on the tax loss. So that way Megas XLR is finally able to come back and get the reboot it's supposed to have. But yeah, unfortunately for now, Megas sleeps. We will probably. I'm not entirely sure if how soon this is going to happen, but it's been about. To my understanding about how taxes work, they have to pay it off at least 7-8 years. So they're around the point where they need to actually start paying off the tax loss. They're around the point where they actually need to start paying it off. So hopefully by buying Megas XLR on Xbox Live Video and iTunes, you will be able to actually help bring the series back. Hopefully, if enough people actually go and do that, that will actually help save the show and bring it back for the potential future. And that is something very big I want to discuss too, because obviously there have been a couple ideas that the crew have actually floated around with for the future if Megas XLR had continued or comes back at some point. And obviously, I've alluded to this, and the show even alludes to this. One of the things that the creators discussed doing is that they would eventually have tied the knot with Jamie and Kiva, and they would have eventually started dating. And of course, obviously, that has very much been alluded by the show, especially in the final episode. But yeah, and obviously opposites attract and that kind of stuff. They don't get along, but obviously they're very opposites attract. And it's very clear that they would have eventually have developed a romantic relationship, because obviously there's been a lot of clues, leading to that. That unfortunately never wound up seeing the light of day, because obviously they didn't get the chance to actually show more of the show. But more importantly, And this is the big one that they wanted to discuss, is that Coop would have accidentally created the Glorf, where he accidentally sneezed into toxic waste and created the Glorf by accident. And obviously, Coop is a screw-up. It makes perfect sense for that to happen. And I'm all for that. Just Coop creating his own worst nemesis is just the funniest thing ever to me. But, of course, this does mean, unfortunately, that Megas XLR can't really come back in any sort of way. So, for the time being, go buy the series. Again, $50. Go check it out. Link is down in the description. Just go check it out. And you guys can just go buy it, go watch it, and that'll help the show come back, because it is a really good show, and I do want to see it return in some way, shape, or form at some point. So, obviously, the best way to do that is by paying off helping them pay off the tax loss. By helping them make the show continue to make money, you can absolutely get the show to come back, and eventually it will come back with a reboot. And that is something I'm going to be reviewing when and if that happens. I don't know when that's going to happen. It's been about 18 years now, and the show still hasn't come back. And obviously, the tax loss is a bit more recent, which means it's probably not going to be paid off until probably later this year. Obviously, they're going to have to break their money by the end of this year or the next one. And that's at that point where Megas XLR is finally going to probably enter production. But obviously the show needs your help to do that, so go buy it. But in case, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching Megas Month. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out. And you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that are my way saying thanks. So be sure to check those out. Link is down in the description. And finally, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to just check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent one. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom is a video is actually recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. And currently, I have it set to play Courage Month, the previous one of these that I've done. So if you want to absolutely check that out, again, link is down in the end screen. Go check that one out. But in any case, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching Megas Month. Until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!